Hi there, my name's April Sawtelle and welcome to my channel. Today what we're going to be doing is working on block number 4 in the Quilt Block for Beginners series. This is going to be a building block. It's going to be a really easy building block. It's going to be really a fast quilt to make and a really fast block to make. All you're going to need today is a rotary cutter, your long ruler. You're going to need some fabrics. Now I've got just some scrappy fabrics. I've cut them all into 10-inch squares, and all I'm going to do is I've got them separated here just to show you how I've got like a dark and a light. So they're not drastic dark and light contrast, but they are enough for what I'm looking for. I just would like to have a nice scrappy looking quilt. So if you can see, we've got the darks on the bottom and then the lights on the top. So it's going to look really pretty when it's done. And so what we're going to do to get started is you're just going to take a couple of pieces of fabric, put them together, and all we're going to be doing, you're going to match that up. I think I'm going to do 4 at a time here. And I'm just going to be cutting off 2.5 inches off the side. So what I'll do, I'm just going to go to the left-hand side. And you want these pretty straight when you are doing this. You just want to not get them wonky. So just line that up. Some people might like to, cut them not in stacks. Maybe you'll want to cut them separately. So just for demonstration purposes, I'll just show you. I'm going to take my long ruler. I'm going to bring my ruler over my fabric to my left, and I'm going to go at 2.5 inches. I want to line up one of the top lines here, anywhere on here, just a nice straight line, and I'm going to come down 2.5 inches on this side. I'm going to count twice, 1, 2.5. Make sure I'm straight here and make sure I'm straight here. I'm just going to cut this edge right off. So now I'm taking 2.5 inches off. I'm going to set this right here. That's my long side. I'm going to spin my fabric. Okay, I'm going to line that up. I'm not lining it on the mat. I could, if you wanted to line your fabric on the mat, just line it up. And then you're just going to cut 2.5 inches right off like that. I'm going to use my ruler. So the mat doesn't really, I'm not going by any guidelines on the mat. Just looking at my ruler. Again, I'm going to line my ruler up to one of the nice lines on the, I'm going to follow lines. That's all I'm doing. So I'm going to square this up, and I'm going to go to my 2.5 inch mark. And it's right there. And I'm going to count twice. 1, 2.5. Slide that marker over. 1, 2.5. Perfect. I'm going to hold down firmly on my ruler, and I'm going to zip that off. Now, I've got 2 different sizes of strips here. So what these strips are going to do, we're going to be working on this, and it's going to actually act as a sashin. So what we'll do, we can take our block, and we can I'm going to put this one on the bottom, and I'm going to just start grabbing. I have no rhyme or reason why I'm going to grab at what I grab. Now what we've got is we've got 4 squares here. Then we've got these 4 sashin pieces and the 4 small sashin. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'll just take from the top. I'm going to lay this right sides together. If you want to stick a pin in there, you can. I'm going to, just for demonstration. Okay, you're going to just take your pin. Remember to push your pin down towards the mat and then come back up at you. I'll just stick 2 pins in there for demonstration to get me to the sewing machine. I'm going to do the same to another piece. I'll grab this one, and I will grab this lighter one. Okay, right sides together. Put a pin here and a pin here. Now remember that pins are preference. For now though, I think just to get us going, it would be a good idea. All right, I'm gonna grab another one. I'm just gonna do it to all of them. So when I get to the machine, I can just chain piece them. I like how this looks. And I will put that right here. Now remember, mine's gonna be scrappy. So I don't really have, I'm just trying to stay a little with that contrast in fabric. But it's going to be very pretty when I get done. So we'll put the pin there. And we've got one more. Line that up. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I will meet you at the sewing machine. So I'm on my Janome 6700P, and all I'm going to do now is I am going to take my little squares I just made, and I'm going to sew down 1/4 of an inch on each one. So I'm just going to drop the presser foot just a smidge before my fabric. I'm going to follow my tape. Remember, my tape now is just a guide. It's about 4 layers of painter's tape. And I'm just going to follow that down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain stitch all of these pieces. Pulling my pins out. I don't want to run over my pins. And I'm going to butt this piece right up next to that, to my needle. And I'm going to pull my pin out and I'm going to follow that 1/4 of an inch seam. If I stay on the edge of my presser foot, that's going to give me 1/4 of an inch seam as well. My tape is just a guide to hold me in place so I don't start getting all swaying to either side. It just keeps it nice and straight. And I'm just going to do that to all 4 of these. And what we'll do after is we're gonna put them together and put the other pieces on and come back. Okay, pull the pins out. Butt that right up and just follow that edge right down and pull the pin out. Okay, so now I've chain pieced this. So now what I've got is all these strings are connected. All the threads here, you can see, are all connected. I'm just gonna snip them off. Right in the back I have a thread cutter. You just hold it, you just hold your fingers and you put it right over the thread cutter and it'll just cut it. They also sell thread cutters that are separate if you were doing a lot of chain piecing. You might want to have one of those. Okay, I'll see you back at the cutting table. All I'm going to do now is I'm just going to set my seam. I'm going to open my fabric and I'm just going to push all of these one way. I'm just going to glide my iron right over each piece. Okay, set the seam, glide the iron. All that's doing is opening that nice and flat. Set the seam, open that nice and flat. These I'm all just going to go one direction. Set the seam, open. Okay, we've got those 4 pieces done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the next 4 pieces, and I'm not going to use this one on top because that matches. So I'm just going to go right over to another one here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lay this down now, right sides together. So all I've got to do is put 1/4 of an inch seam down this side. This is right down the top now. So I will see you at the sewing machine. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to pin this. Just stick a couple of pins in right here, one on each end, just to hold me in place to get to the sewing machine. I'll do the same thing. I will do this to all of them. I'll go to my sewing machine and I will chain piece. And I'll see you back here. So now I'm back at the cutting table, and what I'm going to do now is where I've sewn all these seams, I've got my 1/4 of an inch all down all of these. I'm going to take my hot iron, and all I'm going to do is the same thing. Now I'm just going to, I set the seam, and then I just glide that over. on and see how nice that comes out. See the seam in the back. I'm going to do that to all of them. Set the seam and open that right up. All right, one more. Okay, now we're going to need to trim these. Okay, so I've got those all done, and what I'm going to do now, you're going to see that on each square, now we've got an overhang. We need to get rid of that overhang. And the reason for that is because this came in 1/4 inch on this seam here. Well, a 1/2 inch. We'll call it a 1/2 inch because it's 1/4 on each side. So now we've lost, we have no seam here. So we have to just trim that down. Just take your ruler and you're just going to line up and just match it up to the side. Make sure you're square at the bottom, and you're just going to zip that off. And you're going to just do that to all of them. So if you don't have 10-inch blocks and you want to make 10-inch blocks, if you watch my video, I have another video out that's how to cut patchwork squares or how to cut squares for beginners. That'll just show you. That method that is shown there will show you how to make any size squares. So instead of buying packs of 10-inch squares, you might want to just make your own. That's one thing I always have too. I just always have stacks of different size quilt blocks. So if I want to do a quick project for something. So I just keep a little basket, just a basket I get at the Dollar Tree. And what I do is I just cut down the squares. I do the method that I showed you on the other video if you want to watch that, and it just makes it easy. And so just line up, square it up, and give it a trim. So here the blocks are done. What I've done is I've just made a few extra just to show you. So it's so pretty. It's such a pretty little scrappy quilt. It could be made with you could really go color coordinated fabric on this as well. It would be gorgeous. Now what the thing is when you get that contrast in fabric, all you're doing is it's not that you're really matching those certain ones up like I showed you in the beginning how they were like in twos. It's just that you want to have something to grab out of the pile that kind of contrasts with your fabric. So it just makes it have little pops here and there, you know? And so what I'm going to do, I think with this, when I get this all ready to put together, I think I'm going to cut, when I cut the strips, the 2.5-inch strips off, I think I'm just going to do a bunch of 2.5 strips, sew them all together, and I'm going to have a very scrappy border around the whole thing. Now the other thing is if you make it bigger, you can make enough so you have the pieces would have the actual border around the outside. The way I've done it, I just don't have enough pieces here. I probably would add another couple of blocks just so maybe I could get that sash in all the way around. But if not, I could just easily make some 2.5-inch strips and put binding all the way, sashing all the way around it, which would be a border. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. And thank you for watching. Have a great day. I'll see you next time. And remember to keep it simple. Thank you. Bye.